The first winter I drove that road, an old man handed me a list of 9 things and told me I'd either learn them or die learning them. I thought he was being dramatic. Then on a night when the snow came down so hard my headlights just went out into it and never came back, I passed a young woman walking barefoot up the center line, and I did exactly what the list told me to do. I kept driving. She died that night. And 6 years later, in the same kind of storm at the same mile marker, she was walking there again. Except this time she wasn't barefoot, and she wasn't a stranger. And when I slowed down, she turned and called me by the name that only my daughter uses. I've never told anyone what happened out there. I'm telling it now because the first snow of the year fell last night, and there were footprints on the road outside my house this morning. And I think I'm running out of winters to get this said. Let me start with the ordinary part. There's always an ordinary part. Everybody calls it Route 666 as a joke, but on the maps it's just Old County 6, a 2-lane state road that runs 40 miles through the high country between 2 towns that most people have never heard of, and never will. The sign out by the depot got shot up so many times by drunk kids that the reflective 6 came off twice, and both times it fell in a way that read like the number of the beast, so the name stuck. Drivers loved the joke. I hated it. I'd heard every version of it by my second week, and I'd tell you the same thing I told all of them. It's just a road. Cold, high, badly built and forgotten by the state budget, but just a road. I plowed it for the county for 11 years. That's the job. You sit up in a truck the size of a small house, a steel blade out front throwing snow, a spreader out back laying down salt and sand, an amber beacon turning on the roof, and you run your route back and forth all night through whatever the sky is doing, so that in the morning the milk trucks and the nurses and the school buses have a road to drive on. It's lonely work. It's the loneliest work I know. Just you and the CB and 40 miles of dark and the sound of the blade. I took the night shifts because they paid a shift differential, and I needed the money because I had a daughter down in the city named Maddie, and a marriage that had ended badly, and a lot of ground to make up with both. Maddie was 19 that first winter. We didn't talk much back then. I'd call her from the depot before my shift, and half the time it went to voicemail, and I'd leave a message she probably didn't listen to, and then I'd climb in the truck and go plow a road nobody thanked me for. That's who I was. Keep that in mind. It matters. What kind of man I was for the part that comes later. The old man's name was Sig Ostrander, and he'd plowed Route 6 for 31 years before his knees gave out. And on my first night, he sat in the passenger seat of my truck with a thermos and taught me the road. He didn't teach it like a joke. That's what I remember. Everybody else on that route treated the weird stuff like a bit, a story you told the new guy to spook him. Sig taught it the way you teach somebody to check their mirrors. Flat, serious, like it was just part of the equipment. He had a little spiral notebook, soft and greasy from years in a glove box, and he read me the 9 things off it one at a time. And then he made me copy them onto a card and clip it to my visor, where I'd see it every night. 1. Past mile 19, don't trust the markers. On a bad night, they'll count wrong. Repeat, skip, run backward. When the numbers stop making sense, you're not where you think you are. Slow down and wait for them to settle. 2. The CB will find a channel some nights that plays county dispatch. If it's playing a call you already ran, fine. If it's playing a call you haven't run yet, turn it off. Don't listen to the end. 3. There's a stretch around mile 24 where your headlights won't bounce back off the snow. The light just goes in. Don't slow down through there, and for God's sake, don't stop. Whatever's eating the light is hungry. 4. On the worst night, you'll see footprints in the fresh snow ahead of you. Right up the center line, no car anywhere, no tracks leading in. Sometimes you'll see the walker who made them. You do not stop. You do not slow. You do not roll down your window. You plow right on by. 5. The blade will catch sometimes where there's nothing to catch on. A drag, a scrape, like you hit a body. There's never a body. Don't get out to check. 6. If you see amber beacons ahead of you, another plow working the route, there is no other plow. You run this road alone. Don't follow the lights. They go off the road on purpose. 7. There's a figure that stands at the guardrail at mile 31 where the drop is. Don't look at its face. You look at that face, it gets in the habit of following you home. 8. Near dawn, dispatch will call you back to base with the all clear. If the all clear comes before the sun is actually up, it isn't dispatch. Stay on the road till you see real light." And then he stopped, with one thing left, and he didn't read it. "What's 9? I asked him. He looked out the windshield at the snow coming down in the headlights for a long time. Then he said, "9's the one you already brought with you. Every driver's 9 is different. You'll know it when the road finds it." He capped his thermos. "I hope yours is something small." 3 weeks later, I found out what mine was, and it wasn't small at all. For those first weeks, the list was almost a comfort. The markers did count wrong past 19 sometimes, and I'd slow down and wait, and they'd settle, and I'd feel like a man who knew a secret. The CB found dispatch a couple of times, playing calls I'd already run, and I let it. The dark stretch at 24 was real. You'd watch your own high beams pour out into the snow and just stop coming back, like pouring water into a hole. And I'd keep my foot down and get through it, and my heart would slow back up on the other side. I started to think I had the measure of it. Same mistake everybody makes. Then came the first real storm of that first winter, a whiteout. The kind where the snow isn't falling so much as the whole world is snow, and you drive by feel, by the vibration of the rumble strip under your tires, because you cannot see the hood of your own truck. I was somewhere past mile 20, crawling, and in the little cone of light I had left I saw footprints. Up the center line, fresh, no tracks leading in from anywhere. Rule 4, and then I saw her. A young woman, maybe 20, in a thin jacket, no hat, and, this is the part I've never been able to shake, no shoes. Barefoot in a whiteout, walking up the center line of my road with her arms wrapped around herself. And when my headlights hit her back, she turned and looked at me. And her face was the most human thing I have ever seen. Scared, cold, real. A girl about my own daughter's age, looking at the only light in 40 miles of killing dark, and that light was me. Rule 4, you do not stop. You do not slow. I want to tell you I agonized over it. I didn't. That's the thing I have to live with. Sig's voice was in my head, flat and certain, and I was a new driver terrified of the road. And I did what the list said. I told myself she wasn't real. I told myself it was Rule 4. It was the thing that wears people's shapes. It was a trap. I kept my foot on the pedal and I drove past a barefoot girl in a blizzard, close enough to see her mouth make a word. And I plowed on by, and in my mirror the amber light swept over her once, and then the snow took her. They found Amy Sorensen 3 days later, when the storm broke, in the ditch at mile 21, 19 years old. Her car had gone off at 22 in the whiteout, and she'd tried to walk for help. The coroner said she'd been walking up the road. The coroner said if anyone had stopped, she'd have lived. She was real. She was always real. There was no Rule 4 that night. There was just a scared kid walking up my road, and a coward in a warm truck who'd been given permission not to stop. I kept the missing person flyer, Amy Sorensen, 19, last seen. I keep it still. That flyer is the 9th thing. Sig was right. I brought it with me. I almost quit. I should have quit. Instead, I did the thing men like me do, which is I stayed, because leaving felt like letting myself off the hook, and I didn't deserve to be off the hook. So for 6 years, I drove Route 6 in the winter, and every single storm I passed mile 21, and I made myself look at the ditch, and I carried Amy Sorensen through 11-hour shifts like a stone in my chest. Something shifted in me over those years, though. Slow. The guilt did one good thing. It made me call Maddie more. It made me leave better messages, and then, eventually, have real conversations. Because I understood in a way I hadn't before exactly how fast a 19-year-old girl can be alive and then gone, and how much you'd give to have stopped when you had the chance. Maddie and I got close those 6 years. It's the cruel joke of it. Amy Sorensen's death is the reason I got my daughter back. I've never made peace with that. I don't think you're supposed to. And then, 6 years to the winter, the road came for its due. It was the worst storm anyone at the depot could remember. They almost didn't send us out. I remember Maddie on the phone before my shift. 25 now, engaged, happy, calling me dad in the easy way that still undid me every time, telling me to be careful, to not be a hero, to come home. I told her I loved her. I climbed in the truck, and I drove out into a whiteout that swallowed the world. The strange things came fast that night, faster than they ever had, stacking one on top of another. The markers went haywire past 19, 19, 19, 18, 21, 19, and wouldn't settle. The CB found dispatch, and it was playing a call I hadn't run yet, my own voice awling in a truck off the road at mile 21. And I turned it off before the end like the list said, with my hand shaking. At 24, my headlights poured out into the dark and didn't come back, and I kept my foot down and prayed. Amber beacons bloomed ahead of me at 27. Another plow. Impossible. There was no other plow, and drifted gently toward the guardrail, and I did not follow. The road was throwing everything it had at me. And I understood, the way you understand a thing in your spine before your head admits it, that it was hurting me, driving me toward one particular mile, toward 21. And at mile 21, in the center of the road, in the heart of the whiteout, someone was walking. I slowed. God help me, after 6 years, the second I saw a walker at mile 21, I slowed, because every cell in my body had been waiting 6 years for the chance to not drive past. Rule 4 screamed at me, you do not stop, you do not slow. And I knew that this was exactly the hook. The road had studied me for 6 years. It knew my 9th thing was a barefoot girl in the snow I hadn't stopped for. Of course the walker at mile 21 would be bait. Of course it would wear the one shape I couldn't drive past. The walker turned, and it wasn't Amy Sorensen. It was Maddie, my daughter, 25, in the snow, in the coat I'd given her for Christmas, walking up the center line with her arms wrapped around herself, and when the light hit her, she turned and said, Dad, I knew you'd stop. I knew you wouldn't drive past me. And every alarm the list ever gave me went off at once, because I had just talked to Maddie on the phone, warm and safe, and 100 miles away, and because the thing standing in my headlights was not fogging the air when it breathed. 20 below, and no breath, and its bare feet stood in the snow and left no prints. The prints were already there, ahead of it, like the road had drawn them first, and the shape was just following. It was Rule 4. It was the trap. It was wearing my daughter to make me open the door. I did not open the door. I said out loud to the thing in my daughter's coat, You're not her. She's home. She's warm. You don't get her. And it tilted its head the way nothing human tilts its head, and the Maddie face flickered, just for a second, into something with too much patience in it. And then I put my foot down and I plowed forward, past it, through the space where it stood, and it was gone. And the prints on the center line kept going, because there was a real walker, further on. There always had been. She was 50 yards up at the exact spot where the ditch is, and she was barefoot, and she was in a thin jacket, and she was 19 years old, and this time I knew her name. Amy Sorensen had been walking up my road for 6 years. I understood it all at once, sitting there with my foot off the gas and my whole body shaking. The road had made her one of its walkers the night I left her, the same way it made all of them, out of people abandoned to the cold on that mountain. And she'd been walking mile 21 in every storm since, waiting for the light that didn't stop, reliving the last worst thing over and over. And my guilt had been the chain that held her there, my refusal to let it go, my stone in the chest. 6 years of me carrying her had kept her walking. The list said don't stop. The list said don't get out. Rule 5, don't get out of the truck ever for anything. I turned off the engine. I want to be clear about what that cost, because I need you to understand it wasn't brave. It was just finally right. Turning off that truck in that storm, opening that door, stepping out into 20 below wind with 40 miles of nothing around me. That's how you die out there. That's the whole reason for Rule 5. I knew it. I did it anyway. The cold hit me like a wall. I couldn't feel my face by the time I reached her. And Amy Sorensen turned and looked at me with that same scared, frozen human face, the face I'd driven past. And I did the only thing I had left to do, 6 years too late. I took off my coat and I put it around her shoulders, and I said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have stopped. You were real, and I was scared, and I have thought about you every single day. My voice was going. The cold was taking it. You don't have to walk anymore. Nobody's coming who was ever going to help, and it wasn't your fault, and you can stop now. I'll stay with you. I'm not going to drive past. Not this time. And I sat down in the snow next to a dead girl, in a blizzard, with no coat. And I stayed. Because the one thing I denied her, the one thing that would have saved her, was somebody stopping. Somebody being there in the cold so she wasn't alone in it. I couldn't give her that 6 years ago. I could give it to her now. I felt her lean against me. I felt how cold she was, colder than the storm, a cold with a hollow in it. And slowly, I don't know how long, my sense of time was going with everything else. I felt her get lighter, felt the walking go out of her, felt whatever I'd been holding on to for 6 years let go at the same moment she did, the two of us releasing each other in the snow. The last thing I remember is the storm easing, just around us, just a little, and her voice, not scared anymore, saying, "It's okay, mister. It's warm now." Then nothing. The relief driver found my truck at dawn, engine off, door open, and me face down in the snow at mile 21. And by every law of that mountain, I should have been dead. I wasn't. I lost 2 fingers on my left hand to the frostbite and most of the feeling in that arm. And I spent a week in the hospital, and the doctors called it a miracle, and I let them. Amy Sorensen doesn't walk mile 21 anymore. I've asked. The drivers who came after me on Route 6 have never seen the Barefoot Girl. That stretch is just a stretch now. Whatever I did out there in the snow, it let her go. And it let me go. And I quit the county the day they discharged me, and I have not driven that road since. Maddie got married that spring. I gave her away with a glove on my left hand so nobody would ask. She's happy. We're close. I got that at least out of all of it, and I try not to think too hard about the arithmetic of how. I thought that was the end. I really did. A scar on my hand and a girl finally at rest and a road I'd never drive again. But it snowed last night. First real snow of the year. And this morning there were footprints on the road outside my house, up the center line of my quiet little street, barefoot, coming from the direction of the mountain. They stop at the end of my driveway, and folded neat on my porch railing, wet through, is my coat, the one I put around her shoulders, the one they never found in the snow at mile 21. I've been sitting here all day looking at it, because the road never gives, you understand. Sig tried to tell me that, all those years ago, and I was too new to hear it. The road doesn't free a walker. It trades. I set Amy Sorensen down in the snow, and something got up in her place, and it's had 6 months and a whole summer to learn a new way home. It's wearing my coat now, and the first snow just fell.